Welcome to A Friend of Mine, a series of conversations with some incredible and inspiring women in business from regional and rural Australia. I'm Kimberley Furness, your host and the founder and editor of Oak Magazine, and I cannot wait to introduce you to some amazing female entrepreneurs who will share with you their experience and knowledge of what it takes to start, grow and scale a successful business. So let me introduce you to a friend of mine. Johanna Clark embodies the ethos of women supporting women. Kindness, inclusion and confidence is at the core of her statement earring business, Pink Nade, located in the tiny rural town of Warwicknabeal. Pink Nade is Johanna's fifth business, having started with Joey Jellybean, and then a signwriting business, clothing store, and the local Australia Post contract with her husband Joel. All of this, plus raising 5 children under the age of 13. In the past 3 years, Pink Nade has built a cult following on Instagram with more than 22,000 followers. Johanna has been able to combine her love for design, pattern, and colour to bring out a range of bold statement earrings. Johanna shares with us her entrepreneurial journey, which includes limiting beliefs, severe burnout, and costly wholesale mistakes. She also talks about marketing tactics, mentors, the importance of providing a flexible workplace for mums, and how Pink Nade welcomes new customers and rewards their loyalty. Meet my friend Johanna from Pink Nade. Hello, Johanna, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. I have followed your story, and there were so many parts of it that resonated with me as a mum and as a woman in business as well. So I think our audience will really enjoy today. What I thought we could do to kick us off is tell me, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Really funny that you should ask me that question. We had this conversation yesterday because I don't feel like I'm grown up yet. There's still things that you want to do. But when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to wear a power suit and live in the city in an apartment and be super important and always busy and rushing around. And that kind of stuck with me all the way through to year 12. But I was also interested in accounting, and I felt like it was the same thing. I could be an accountant, and I ended up doing a commerce degree and did a little bit of law and did not enjoy it. So I went down the sort of line of accounting, but never actually became an accountant.
Yeah. Do you think that's an idea of success to you back then, to be in the power suit, to be in Melbourne and have a career?
Absolutely. I grew up in Port Fairy, which is a small country town, and I just wanted to be in the city where things were happening, and I really wanted to be successful. I've always been independent, felt like there was something big out there for me, and at the time that was kind of what I focused on.
Yeah, I wonder where we get that from, whether it's the role models we have, the magazines we were reading back then, Dolly, Girlfriend, I don't know, or shows that we watched. I'm really unsure where we get that idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. I can't even think back that far to what would have inspired it. And this wasn't from when I was younger, but when I was a teenager, definitely Elle Woods from Legally Blonde. I just wanted to be her. And I still, to this day, if I'm feeling down or unmotivated, I'll watch Legally Blonde and perk back up again.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's making a comeback too, I think.
Yeah,
so that'll be
yeah.
exciting. So you always wanted to be, say, a lawyer or an accountant. Obviously, something happened in your life that made you take, a different path. What was that?
Children.
Oh, bless them. Change makers they are.
I know. I fell pregnant when I was 18 with my first child. I had him when I was 19. I was actually at uni studying nursing and midwifery when that happened, and I don't know why I went down that path. And after I had him, I went back to TAFE and did accounting and things like that. But I found that wasn't really flexible. I wanted to be there for my kids when I needed to be, and I didn't like having to ring up, if my kid was sick from work and call in sick and be unreliable. To me, that just didn't feel right. And I'd always been creative. So when I said I wanted to be an accountant and a lawyer, in my spare time, I was making earrings out of a tackle box. I was using all of my money from my part-time jobs to buy beads at the bead shop. I was LED lighting. I was just doing creative things. So it's always been a part of my life, but I didn't think you could make money doing it. So I guess I went for that career path, but also because school drummed it into me that you have to get a good enter score, you have to go to uni and build a career, and if you didn't, then you were a huge failure. And what would you do? I would just be so lost if I didn't. So in high school, I did subjects like maths methods and like advanced English and stuff that I hated.
Yep.
Because you got a better score than jewelry making, which was something I loved. I used to go in at lunchtime and do that. Because you would lose points or something. I can't remember how it really worked, but we were sort of guided to not necessarily follow our passion and just follow something that you could get that score. And then actually when I had Ezekiel when I was 19, and then I went back to uni to do accounting when I was 21, I couldn't use my enter score anymore. I was a mature age student, and I was like, what? I just killed myself studying all of that time for 3 years later to not be able to use it and to have to find another way. So like I did a diploma of accounting at TAFE to find my way into the course, but that just ticked me off.
There are so many pathways into what you want to do.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that, you know, is really good to remind those that are doing their VCE is that it doesn't all land on that last score that you get. I think just the fact that you've actually finished Year 12 is really important. I think they need to make that push through and finish something, because then that sets you up, you know, from then on in. But in terms of, you know, needing that really special score for what you do, God, as you said, you come in as a mature age student later on. You know, for me, it was more so about work experience, like on-the-job work experience that helped me get a position. However, I've always had that little voice behind me that says, you're still not good enough, but you don't have that piece of paper, Kimberley. Like, you've never gone to uni. You're just an amateur at what you do. Do you ever feel like that as well?
All the time.
Yeah.
So I have the piece of paper.
Oh, you're lucky.
No, I don't. So I have the piece of paper that says that I have a Bachelor of Commerce, which is accounting. But I actually, like I said, I never used it. When I went to uni, I had just had my second child, and when I graduated, I was pregnant with my fourth. So I just couldn't get a job afterwards because I was going to have to leave. So I taught myself graphic design, and I'm the graphic designer in my husband's signwriting. Well, up until recently, we just hired someone finally to take over my role. But I felt like the biggest fraud because I didn't go to uni to do graphic design. So how can I say I am a graphic designer, charge an hourly rate if I don't have the piece of paper, which is imposter syndrome.
It is.
Talked about before. So.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is absolutely huge. And I think it just pops up whenever too, doesn't it? You know, it's not something I think we overcome. I was saying to you before we hit record that I listened to a podcast with you on the way over. I just happened to find one right at the end before I'd taken the 2.5, 3 hour drive over. And I thought, I'll listen to that, see if there's anything else I can pick up. And it was probably the worst thing that I did because he was really good. He asked great questions, fantastic segues. And I got in my head and gone, oh my God, well, I don't know where to go with this now. I'm completely lost. So I think, that imposter syndrome always pops up, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you'll listen to, like I've listened to lots of podcasts with women who I consider to be extremely successful. They're leaders in their fields and they feel like imposters. I'm like, wow, if they can feel like that, then we're not alone, and you can feel like that at any level. Like even when I employed my staff, I've had jobs before, but I was never in a management role, and I don't feel like I can be the boss. I'm like, I'm not the boss because I've never done that before, and who am I to be in charge of people even though I am? And yeah, I don't know.
There's so many different styles of leadership and management though, so I'm sure you're doing the right thing in the way you're approaching it. I've just got a feeling by what I see on Instagram. And of course, walking through your store today, they seemed perfectly happy.
Yes.
Now, so you had your second, and where did you go from there? Did you try to, find a job that would fit in with family life?
Yeah, so I was a pharmacy assistant prior to when I worked in hospitality and things like that, and it kind of worked, but it didn't, like with if I needed to call in sick or anything like that. So I decided to start my own creative business because I could do it around study, around kids in my own time, and it would fulfill that sort of passion as well. So I started a children's brand called Joey Jelly Bean, and I just started sewing bibs and dresses, and even though I had only boys at the time, all of those sorts of things. And that was the start of my entrepreneurial journey, and where I really loved working for myself and couldn't necessarily see myself working for someone else. So that was, I actually, to be honest, can't remember anything from that time because there was uni, kids, work in any available time that I had. And I'm not someone who can underachieve, if that makes sense. So like at uni, I couldn't just do a half job on an assignment. I had to try and get a high distinction or whatever. So it was a stressful time, but I learnt a lot from having that first business. I did that for probably 10 years. It evolved. I taught myself how to screen print, and then I taught screen printing, and then I did some manufacturing offshore, and I got into wholesale and did markets, ran a market, lots of little things, got into debt, bad debt, good debt. So learnt a lot from my mistakes, but sort of I wouldn't be where I was today if I didn't do that.
Well, that sounds like the typical roller coaster of business
Yes.
ownership, doesn't it? You've pretty much hit all the highs and lows that you possibly could.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the lows, because I think it's always nice to revisit those, talk about them, make other people feel better, I think.
Okay.
That they're not the only ones.
Yes.
Because I think we all have such fear and embarrassment around those moments that we don't talk about them out loud. And it's so interesting that when we publish these podcasts that people send the DMs, oh my God, thanks for talking about that. That's exactly how I feel. It's great to hear that there's other people out there. So
Yeah, because there is a lot of shame around things too.
it's shame. That was the word. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I've just wiped that word from my vocab.
No, I know it because I felt it for years, and I had lots of limiting beliefs then that sort of come from. So my biggest failure was definitely the debt that I went into to manufacture the baby clothing overseas. I made heaps of mistakes with accepting samples and going into manufacturing when the sample wasn't quite right. So when the product arrived, even though I'd said, okay, make them 2 inches longer, I didn't get that sample of it 2 inches longer, and they just all turned up wrong. And there was, when I was doing it, we had the big drop in the US and Australian dollar. So at one point, between I paid for my samples and I paid for the order, there was a $16,000 like drop. It was just exchange rate difference. I didn't get anything for that $16,000. So I had credit cards, I had overdrafts, personal loans, like anything I could to just, and I keep thinking next, like I'll sell through this, pay the debt off next season. But the reality is that you actually don't usually sell through all of your stock, which I didn't know. I thought you would produce something, I loved it, it was cool, people would like fight over buying it, like it wouldn't be that hard to get stockists and sell retail, and I'd get rid of all the stock and then I would pay for the next, and that was not the reality at all. And I just had to keep getting more and more debt, and the stress was just next level. And then I accidentally got pregnant with my 5th child, and I decided that I would stop right there and then, because I couldn't remember the years when my other kids were little because of the stress and things like that. And I didn't want that for my last. He was definitely going to be my last. So I stopped the business and was left with the debt. So I didn't have that next season to help me pay off. I just cut it. I'm still paying that debt off today. But I carried a lot of shame and thought I had this limiting belief then that I was terrible with money and I didn't know what I was doing and I wasn't good enough. So anything that I did business related going forward, I had that thought in my head, and I said it to myself all of the time, like, who are you to do this? You have no idea what you're doing. You're terrible with money. Even if you make it, you won't know what to do with it. And I carried that for years and years until I went to a Tony Robbins conference and walked on fire and did all of those things and worked through the limiting beliefs and realised that was just a story I was telling myself of one mistake that I made, and it didn't define my future or what I was capable of. So as soon as I let that go, things started to change.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, we've all been there with that debt, trust me.
Yeah.
You know, the mag, yep, I've been there. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I'll just take the money out and cover the, I suppose, the balance of what the advertising didn't, just so we can get this mag out and look successful. And I think people think it makes a massive profit when, you know, advertising revenues few and far between. So you do what you do because you're passionate, but as you said, you've got to pull yourself up at some point and, you know, and look for a different way. So what would be your advice then to those that are in manufacturing, like that are creating those fabrics and samples and things like that? Is there any tips that you could give someone that's going down that road?
If you can find someone on the ground. So I'm looking at potentially maybe going back into it in the near future. And there's agencies around, and there's one in Australia where they will go to the factory and check, and you can give them a sample that you've approved. They will go and check that sample to the ones that they're producing to make sure that it's all correct, instead of like a pallet of stock arriving that's completely wrong. But definitely just to make sure your final sample is exactly how you want it before they go into production.
And it's okay to have that confidence to push back as well.
Yes, yeah. And if it costs you an extra $1,000, because sometimes they'll push you and say, oh, if we resample this, it's going to cost another $1,000. How about we just go into manufacturing, pay it? Because it might seem like a lot at the time, but when all of that stock arrives and you can't sell it, that was one of mine. Labelling was another mistake I made. I had a heap of stuff come with the incorrect labels on them, and I physically sewed the labels on 1,000 things. So, labelling as well.
So I just don't think people see those hard nights, those hard yards behind the scenes.
No, and people don't share that stuff. You're not going to say, these leggings arrived and the elastic was too tight, so I couldn't sell them. And, what do you do with that sort of stuff? People don't talk about that. You want people to see that you're killing it. You don't like that. And I think that's actually an issue, and I don't do it anymore. I did it then. I was like, I wanted everyone to think everything was going well, even though it was falling apart behind the scenes. Now I definitely share the highs and the lows. I don't make it look like we're killing it all the time, because we're not.
Yeah. So then what gave you the confidence to go into business round 2?
I don't know. It just evolved. I'm pretty lucky. My husband, Joel, is a natural entrepreneur as well, very driven, very motivated. I don't think it's for everybody. When you're your own boss, you could quite easily sit at home and watch Netflix all day. You need to be driven to you need that drive to do it, and he has it too. So it is a roller coaster, like what we talked about before. But I was still doing that Joey Jellybean business, and my husband decided to start a signwriting business, and he's someone who's got great ideas, but then the execution sometimes is like, I'll buy the large format printer and we'll work it out later, and then doesn't work it out, and I work it out. He knows that I will. We kind of complement each other, even though it drives me nuts because, but then that forced me to learn graphic design so that I could do the designs for the signwriting and all of that sort of stuff. And then that led me on to, we purchased a retail space down the street so that we could run the business from. The one beside it become available, so we decided to open a clothing store, sort of randomly, but also so that I could be here full-time and man both businesses. So we did that, and then I started making earrings to sell in the shop because I wanted a product that had a little bit more margin and that I had control over what we sold. And then because I taught myself graphic design, I could design my own earrings. So it all kind of worked its way to that. And then because I'd had experience in markets, wholesale, things with my previous business, I just adapted that to my earring business, Pink Nade, and then that turned into its own standalone business. We still have the clothing store and we still have the signwriting business.
So how many businesses is that?
I hate saying it. No. So we technically have 5, but we have 3 that we actively run like that. We own an Australia Post contract here, so my husband is the postie. We have staff, but sometimes he has to deliver. And then we own a car detailing business that we kind of fly under the banner of the signwriting business, and we have an employee for that too. So
I wouldn't be embarrassed. I think that's just absolutely kick-ass.
Crazy.
No, just kick-ass it is.
No,
it's
so
amazing.
stupid.
Because what we haven't actually said is that you're a young couple.
Yes.
You live in Warwick-Neville and you have 5 children.
Yes.
All under the age of 13.
Yeah.
I have a large family, so there's 6 of us, only 4 kids. But it's busy. That in itself is busy. And the older they get, the more you have to juggle. There's not a lot of time for us all to have, when you put work and a business on there, to have those extra little bits. You've got, 5 businesses and, managing social media, and you don't have a huge empire or anything. You're just hard working. It's amazing.
It sounds amazing, but it's also not very smart.
No, well,
I wouldn't say, because I can't give 100% of myself to everything. So everything is not getting 100% of me, including the children sometimes. So I don't necessarily agree with my decision to have this many businesses, but
what could you let go?
Nothing. I'm really trapped. Not trapped. That sounds like I can't make a decision to change, which I absolutely could, but there's nothing I would give up. I did give up Joey Jellybean. I went through a pretty severe burnout, and that had to go. That could go. But I knew for a while I needed to let that go. So when I did, I actually just felt relief, not sadness that I'd done it, which I would feel if I let go of anything I have now. But also I think it's my natural state to feel overwhelmed. Something I'm trying to change. But if I feel like I've all of a sudden got a bit of spare time, like I'll employ someone full time, and that takes heaps off my plate, I'll put something else on my plate.
On the plate.
Yeah. So that's how we ended up where we are now.
Yeah.
So
I think there are so many people nodding right now, because I'm nodding. I'm like, that's what I do.
Right.
But I know that feeling of letting go of a business. I did that at the end of last year. And there was no shame attached to it in the end. It was just, it felt like the right time. And I just can't believe that, I suppose, that pocket of relief that it opens in you. So I could just imagine if you kept taking a couple more of those things off, just, my gosh, how you'd feel. Do you want to tell me about your experience of burnout and how that happened and how you've dealt with it as well?
Yeah, so I didn't even know what burnout was. I didn't know it was a thing, and I felt like I had unlimited capacity. Like I could just go and go and go. I would stay up until 3 a.m, screen printing and sewing bibs, get up in the morning at 7 and do the kids in the house and all the things that I needed to do. And even though I was treating my body quite poorly, like I was drinking too much coffee or energy drinks or things like that to do it, I would just be able to cope, because I always did. And then it got to a point, and I don't know why, it was like my body just gave up and said, nah, that's too much. You've gone too far. And it started off, I actually had Ross River, the mosquito virus, and all my joints like seized up, and it was really painful, and there's no, like, you just have to ride that out. There's nothing you can do to get rid of it. And it like re-emerged. It was like everything was sort of low, and it sort of come back up. So my fingers I couldn't move my fingers and lift my arms up, lift my children up. And then I got really bad brain fog. I had eye twitches. I was slurring my speech. I couldn't think of words, like a simple word to say. It didn't come to me, like shame. Like that surprised me that I came up with the right word, because sometimes I just can't anymore. And I actually thought was like MS or something, because, obviously you Google all your symptoms.
Oh my gosh.
And a lot of those symptoms did not look good. And I went to the doctor and I was sort of explaining all the symptoms, and he was looking down lines of testing and things like that. And then he just sort of looked at me and said, actually, how about you tell me about your life first? And he did know me, and he did know that I had 5 children, but he didn't know what else I did. And I explained it all, and he just shook his head at me and he said, you're too far burnt out, and you can actually do permanent damage. So he was talking about admitting me to hospital to force me to rest, because he knew I wouldn't if I went home. And I was given a choice to go into hospital or drop something, which is when I decided to drop Joey Jellybean. But I didn't know I had a limit until then, and definitely found out I had the limit, and I didn't learn from that. I've burnt out many times since, but I recognised the sign. Like, we joke about it at work, but like if Deanne one of my girls asked me to cut a sheet on the laser cutter, and that one extra thing that I have to do, if my eye starts twitching, we're like, oh no, the eye twitch is back. Like, Jo's done, she's doing too much. Just like a simple task that adds on to already your to-do list can cause that physical reaction, and it's your body telling you to slow down, which I struggle with, because obviously I can't necessarily always slow down, but I've learned to rest quickly. So like I could take a weekend off, and it won't completely get me out of burnout, but it'll get me enough so I can function. And if I'm lucky enough, I might get the next weekend as well. So I don't know if I have any huge tips.
I'm sitting here. I just want to say, take a holiday. Please go take a break. I know, and I know that how hard that is to actually do with everything that you guys do, and especially with the postie delivery. I mean, gosh,
so
small town, they'll just all fall over if Joel stops delivering.
Legally, we have to deliver them out. So exactly. We We get public holidays.
Yeah.
So that's our holiday.
Yeah.
We're trying to change that at the moment with employees and things like that to get
that's
a
the thing,
break.
isn't it? Is finding to put someone else on to, to help relieve some of that. Yeah, yeah. How much time do you spend on your phone? It's a weird question, isn't it? I was just thinking, you have a huge audience with Pink Nade. Are you on it all the time? Like, how much time does it take to build such an amazing community of women?
A very long time. So it's taken us 3 years to build Pink Nade to where it is. I hate to think how much I'm on my phone. I did put the screen time thing on and then took it off because it was like every Sunday morning I'd get a ding, like, you spent this much time on your screen. And it is work, like, but everybody can get that addiction where I'll just quickly go on and reply to a few DMs, and then it's been 3 hours and you've gone down a rabbit hole or you've done things. But also when we're trying to be quite diverse. So we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, which is my new thing. You've got to have different content for each platform, you've got a different audience on each platform. Like it's a thing.
And I don't like to interrupt, but how important multi-channel distribution / marketing is now? Like, more than ever, we've just discovered with Facebook pulling, pretty much putting a ban on a lot of pages. Like, I think it's really made people realise that, oh, hey, we rely on that platform way too much. Like, we need to own something, our own database. So for you, have you started to, like, given what's happened on Facebook in the last sort of 24 hours, had that made you think about using other platforms as well for your marketing? Do you already have a database?
Well, I have been building my email database, which is probably the only thing you can actually own at the moment. I think Instagram could just shut your page off. It's happened to lots of people lately, which would be so devastating. Like, that gives me so much anxiety to think they could just take all of that hard work away. So email databases, yes. I didn't start early enough, I don't think. I think once you start a business, you should instantly start collecting and building your email database. I have a mentor team who have pushed me towards it, and we do marketing towards building our list and things like that. So it's new for me, but it should have been something I did at the start.
Yep. And I mean, just if someone's listening and they're at, say, ground zero with it, I mean, something as simple as MailChimp. It's free. It's really easy to understand in terms of drag and drop, and you can set some campaigns up. You could even have a sequence. So someone signs up and they get a nice welcome. The other one, say if you're in retail, so you've got an e-commerce, would be Klaviyo. Like, go and pay that extra money to have something that is really robust. But yeah, we really need to build those markets, don't we?
Yeah, but it is, like, I understand why people don't, because it's the reason I didn't. It is so over my head. Like, I know tech, but there's just some tech I just can't, and I can't work out. I use ActiveCampaign, which is, like, I guess similar to Klaviyo.
No, it is. Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I just use a team to manage it, because actually one of my mentors was trying to talk me through how to set up a sequence, and I burst into tears. Like, it's too hard. Like, who can I pay to do this? I need to outsource this. This is something I need to outsource.
Yeah.
Which I would recommend. But also there's not always a budget for that too. So, but I think it should be a priority now more than ever for people to focus on there.
Yep, definitely. So one thing I have noticed with your Instagram is that I can tell that it's from you. Like, there are your earring captions, but then there's these little personal ones just peppered in your grid, asking people about maybe their favourite book or something like that. But then a couple that are a little bit more deeper as well. Like, is that intentional?
Yes, it is. I focus a lot on building connections and relationships, and I don't want people I want them to be able to relate to me, and for people to know the real me. I find it sometimes hard if you're, like, holding shame on something and no one else shares that they actually feel that same shame about something. So I don't want to make someone feel like that. So I'll share things, even if it's hard for me to do, to make someone else feel like that's okay, because we're all in this together, sort of thing. I don't know. I just love women.
Yeah. Well,
and I feel like if we just connect and things like that on a personal level, not just me trying to sell you earrings all the time, that that's kind of a part of the reason I'm doing it.
And I think you've provided me a perfect segue, so thank you. You are the type of person, I see kindness and generosity through your account, but I also see you holding your hand back and pulling other people up and along with you. Women supporting women is a very big why or a very big purpose, would you say, to your business?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll do whatever I can. But it's not to say that I don't struggle with that too, because I think people aren't necessarily always open and honest about that. So I will support a woman in any way that I can, but I always still have that little bit of doubt, like, oh, if I help her, then she might take my business or she might do something like that. And I intentionally push that voice back and go, no, there's enough room for all of us and we can all succeed, and me helping her is not going to take away from me in any way, shape or form. But it is that little, I don't know if it's society or things that tell us that there's just not that many places at the table, and if you help someone else up, that will diminish your success or things like that. So I think that a lot, it's, well, women supporting women, but we don't necessarily always talk about that there is that little voice. But 100%. I think it's important to...
It's because we get burnt along the way, Johanna. There's always one. And, that's got nothing to do with gender, I don't think. I think that's just, people, human race. And there's always one, and I suppose you've just got to keep being open until that happens. And it's amazing how quick you can shut down when that happens.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they can't be you. No, there's only one you.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's very unique, whatever you bring to the table. How have you gone? I mean, you do have a earring business that is heavily designed. What's it? Do people take your designs at all? Like, does that come into it?
Surprisingly, not surprisingly, that sounds really like, oh, my stuff is so good.
No,
no one, apart from one company in like Portugal or something that did like exactly the same. I found the earring community quite respectful.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't really come across any. Some that are like, that's a bit borderline, but they don't know what I'm going to come up with next. So,
yes. See, that's the thing. You'll always be one step ahead.
Yeah, but it's exhausting at the same time, and it's frustrating. And people say take it as a compliment that someone's copied you. No. But then I think actually I get excited now. Because I'm like, I was getting a little bit too complacent there. You've just forced me to come up with something new and something fresh, and then you do it and you get to that next level and you're like, you pushed me. You don't know that you did, but...
Yeah, you use that as a driving factor.
Yeah, so now instead of getting frustrated, I'm like, thank you. I really needed that push, and now I'm going to come up with something amazing, even though I'll probably burn out in the process because I've got nothing left to give. And now I feel like I have to produce something new, so I'm different again. And it depends how you... take it, I guess.
Suppose it does.
Yeah.
Before I mentioned about your kindness and generosity and how that comes through, I know you've mentioned once before that you're very generous in what you do and what you provide. So in terms of placing an order, you could place your first order, but is it your second order you get a pack of affirmation cards?
So you get one with your first and your second. Yes. So I focus, and my whole life is based around gratitude and being grateful. So I feel like it can turn, it can turn, you can't feel angry and grateful at the same time. So I would rather feel grateful than, resentful and things like that. So I want to show my Pink Nade Girl Gang how grateful I am, because I wouldn't be where I am and I wouldn't be living this life if it wasn't for them. So they'll buy a pair of earrings, which are already amazing, like they're getting something cool anyway, but then in their first order, they'll get a free pair of Girl Gang studs, which is just a welcome to the Girl Gang. They'll get a free pack of affirmation cards, which is I guess it's aligned with our branding, but more so about our values. So like empowering women. And then if you spend over a certain amount, you get a mini earring board. With your second order, there's a second pack of affirmation cards, like a different one again. And then with your third and however many orders after that, we've had some customers that, 20-something orders, they get a gratitude notepad, which is a 25-page notepad, so it doesn't matter how many times you get it because it's like a consumable thing. So it's just like 3 things you're grateful for that day, and just to get into the habit of practicing gratitude. With our retail store, which is Pink Nade Boutique, our clothing store, we have another pack of affirmation cards that is around body positivity.
Where did you come up with these ideas?
I don't know.
You're just clever.
They just come to me in the middle of the night. Like I just said to the girls before, I couldn't sleep last night and I've come up with this idea. So I've written it down and I'll put it into action. I think I'm pretty grateful for my drive and motivation, because I can come up with things and action them, and it just comes naturally, not necessarily, I don't have to push it. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's got to cost something though. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my accountant would probably advise not to do those things. And I do, like, obviously with an accounting background, I'm wary of my profit margins and the financial cost of giving away freebies, but I know down to the cent how much those cost me. And I can afford it. I take that hit on profit because I think it's worthwhile and I want to show that appreciation. But what I get from it, and like from a business perspective, it helps with your return customers. So we, like, daily I'll put in, we've got a Facebook, like a messenger group with the girls from work, and I get positive feedback every day on things like that. Their customer experience, their, you know, I thought I was buying a pair of earrings and I got all of this other thing, and I just feel so like I'm really a part of your community, and then they'll come back and buy again. So it's not necessarily my intention, but it does help with return customer rate.
So you're all over the numbers of your business then. That's what I picked up as well in that little bit.
Yes, I wasn't always.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 mentor teams who help me with different areas of my business, and I've probably been doing that for 6 months now. And one of them is heavily focused on figures and knowing what they are, knowing what your profit margins are, percentages, and trying to keep to them. So I have been guided along that path, but I didn't always. But now I'm really like, some of the girls who work for me have their own businesses. I'm like, how much does your product cost you? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, tell me, work it out, and then we'll talk about it, make sure you've got the right margins. Because when I had Joey Jellybean, I was screen printing these bibs, I was sewing them, I was like, the amount of effort, and then I was wholesaling them for $8, and that was not, I thought I was making money, but I was not making a cent for all of that time. So now I'm really cautious. Am I making money? And then it makes me, I have this limiting belief that I'm greedy, like it's all about money. So then I feel bad for being like, no, we can't do that because the margin's not there, or things like that. So I just have to work through that and keep like there, and like I've got staff, so I need to make money, I need to pay wages, and
yeah, definitely.
Like that, so
again, there's a whole nother conversation there, isn't there? Why do we feel greedy when we're actually making a profit? I don't know. It's just,
yeah, or we want more.
I know.
Like, should we just be grateful for what we're earning, and why do we want to get to that next level?
Yeah, I don't know. Mentoring groups, where did you find them?
Facebook.
Oh.
Everybody goes to find everything.
Yeah.
No, I actually posted like a question box in, I think it was Like-Minded.
I've seen you in
Don't
there.
know if we're allowed to swear on
Yes, we are. Like-minded bitches drinking wine.
Yes. Looking for recommendations on mentors, and I got some great recommendations, and I went with 2 different groups. One woman helps me mainly with my wholesale side of business, because that's a big part of my business, and the other team helped me with more like the website and the numbers and the email marketing and Facebook ads, things like that. So I feel like I get best of both worlds. And then the one who helps me with wholesale runs business retreats, which I went to my first one the end of last year, I think, and it was like the best thing I could have ever done, because it was a group of business women at each other's levels, and it was really, I don't know how to say it, but everyone was really free with their knowledge. Like, it wasn't, I'm not going to tell you that, oh, if I could help you, I'll help you. And I learnt so much from that weekend alone, and I gave as much as I got, but that was the whole point of it, was to share. And yeah.
Yeah. So they've been a good investment for your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you wish you had done it earlier then, or it's come at the right time?
I wish I had done it earlier, but to be completely honest, I couldn't afford to. Yeah. It's not necessarily cheap. There's different levels of mentoring and things like that. But for me, the investment is 100% worth it. A big thing I learned at Tony Robbins was don't try and always reinvent the wheel. Find someone who's doing what you want to do and learn as much as you can from them, and don't just take from them, offer something. So like, say, hey, Kimberley, I want to learn how to do a podcast. Can I take you out for tea? Like, let's have a coffee, and then I'll offer you something.
It's a date.
It's a date. So it's not just take, but like, why waste your time trying to reinvent the wheel when someone else can help you a lot quicker? And even I was just speaking yesterday, Sarah, our new employee for our signwriting business, she's got a graphic design degree. But in relation to signwriting, sometimes there's just little things And there were a few issues yesterday that I was able to resolve quite quickly because I had those issues in the past and had to work out how to resolve it myself, and it caused so much heartache. And I just thought, I wish I had me. But like, I'm so jealous that you have me who's done all of this stuff the wrong way to know the right way to do it, which is what a mentor does for you. So
they do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. So you mentioned gratitude before, and, you know, in saying that you can't be angry and grateful at the same time, where has that whole gratitude thing stemmed from?
Tony Robbins.
Oh, Tony.
I feel like I'm in the cult. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and I definitely do not push him on everyone. He's not for everyone, but like my whole life turned around after this conference. But that was where I always knew about gratefulness, and I practiced it. There's a project in Australia called the Resilience Project. And
got the book.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's amazing. And he does talks in schools and things like that. And if you do the daily practice of writing down 3 things you're grateful for throughout your day, you won't be focusing on the negative. You'll be thinking about, oh, what positive could I write down tonight? And then it changes your mindset to focus on the positive and not the negative. So it changes, like this, it just seems so simple to write down. Like today I was so stoked that the pub opened back up and I could go and have a pot and Palmer. That's letting out my country bogan there. But like then, getting excited about that and not thinking about something that was really negative.
That is hugely worth celebrating, a pot and Palmer at the pub. Even better if it's a Thursday night for $12. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it had been a while last year when we were all shut down and things like that.
Yes.
So any excuse not to have to cook tea for my 5 children is a good thing. But yeah, I definitely learned it from like a few different places, I guess, but really started to put it into practice after this seminar that I attended. And I don't know, I think I don't know how to say it, but you're seeing everyone's highlight reels, and there's this like keeping up with the Joneses. So how come they got a new car and I can't get a new car? And that feeling is not a nice feeling, that you're not enough or you're not doing enough, or so then to flip it and be like, oh, I'm so grateful I've got a car. Some people don't even have a car, and my car goes, it's registered, the wheels are going to oh, I'm so lucky I've got a car, and good for them, and then you don't know that they didn't mortgage their house to get that car, and they lose sleep at night because they can't actually afford the car that they've got because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And not to say that that's always the case, but you don't know because it's a highlight reel. You don't know what really is going on behind the scenes, and just to be able to bring yourself back to be grateful can cause you to not have so much heartache.
Yeah, but I suppose we're just conditioned to show up with the best version of ourselves.
Yes.
So before we wrap it up, there's just one more question. Oh, there's 2 questions that I want to ask. The first one being that, we're in a rural town. There's not many opportunities in rural communities, unfortunately. However, we can start our own businesses and be so very successful. You could even start 5 if you wanted. But what I love about you, Johanna, is that you're providing opportunity for other women in your community, and especially those that are mums with kids that need to find a 9 till 3. Do you realise how big that is, and what a wonderful thing you're doing?
I do, because it's a part of my why and why I do what I do. I wish I could have had a workplace where I could have flexible hours. Like if my child had a doctor's appointment, that I could be like, oh, I've got a doctor's appointment. Is it okay if I start an hour early to make up for that hour, and for that to just be cool? And then to come to work and be able to bitch about your life and things like that, and have a supportive and be like, yeah, asshole, or whatever, and it's fine. So I guess it stems from me wishing that I had that, and then wanting to provide it. But I do believe that there is, yes, we're in a rural town, there's about 2,500 people here. There are so many opportunities. Obviously we've done 5 so far, and we would do more if we had time. People can do this sort of stuff. I think it's a fear of failure and a fear of if it doesn't work out, what will people think, especially in a small town. That can be a thing, and that was a thing for us too, but we've worked through that and we don't care now. And nothing has failed. So,
there you go.
And we've employed some amazing people, and we're continually always growing, and it has its challenges and things like that as well, but it's a big part of why we do what we do, and we love that we can provide a workplace that's fun.
So amazing.
Yeah.
And I know you have fun because I see you on Instagram. I see you on Insta stories. You have lots of dancing fun. Now, one last question. Tell me about a friend of yours that we need to know about.
All right, we talked about this before because I'm going to say 2. I feel like I couldn't or maybe 3. I can't.
You can say as many as you like.
Okay, so I have 2 girls that work for me who have their own businesses. One is Brittany. She has a business called Bish Collective, and she sells clothing and candles and things like that, all along the lines of body positivity and inclusiveness and things like that. And then we have Deanne, who has worked for me from the start, and she's just started her bath bomb business called Exploding Indulgence.
Cool name.
Yeah. And she's very niche. So they're dirty bath bombs. Not all of them. She does do like kids related ones, but there's some, I don't know how you'd say it, R-rated bath bombs. Yeah. So the Exploding Indulgence kind of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you check her out.
I'm intrigued.
You'll have to have a look. There's some in the shop. We sell them in the store as well. So yeah, I'm really proud of the girls, and Deanne, I guess, necessarily wasn't always entrepreneurial, and I've pushed for years because I can't understand how someone can't be. That's just how my brain works, and she's done it, and she's doing an amazing job. I feel like I want to support all my friends, but there's so many and they all have businesses. But I do have two women. They run a business here locally called Aubrey and Arigra. It's a marketing agency, and they are all about supporting rural businesses and with a big emphasis on rural women in business. So yeah, I think they're killing it as well.
Yeah. And they did a fantastic job because there's a couple of stories that are on our radar because of them. So they definitely do their job. They know where to find their niche audience. And that's amazing.
And they've got, they both worked in Melbourne. Kaz used to work for Myers. I'm not sure where Kate worked, but she worked in marketing and branding and things like that. And I can always go to them if I have a question. They got a really good campaign recently to do some video commercials to highlight the area, and I was the talent. So
I can't wait to see it.
I'm very extremely nervous to see it. It was a fun day, but to be able to support each other in that way, they needed someone, and I'll take a day off work to do that.
When you've got professionals behind the camera, honestly, you'll look amazing.
I feel like it was a lot of me.
I know, but they've got this magic wand that they just wave over everything, and you'll just go, oh my gosh, wow, look at that.
Yeah, I hope so. My children were in it too, and it was a
Beautiful.
day. So,
beautiful. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you for being a guest on my podcast. Thank you for being more than just a hashtag, women supporting women. You actually embody it, and that's really important. This whole movement that we're trying to create, support and grow is more than just a hashtag. And let's wrap up so I can go have a shop in your shop.
We're going to say a shot.
No. Okay. Oh, we can have one. Yeah. It's after 12, so we can certainly have a wine. But yeah, I promised the girls that I'd bring home some earrings for them, and I need some for my outfits as well. So thank you so much, Johanna, for being a friend of mine.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Now, before you take off with all that inspiration and knowledge, we'd love for you to leave a review on our podcast so that we can continue to amplify women's voices in the media. And if you have any questions, we'd like to celebrate a win, you can always connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Oak Magazine AU. I'm so glad we've met and that now you know a friend of mine.